Thank you for inviting me to this interview. It's really hard to explain what Agile really means. So last year we fired 6 top-notch Agile consultants because each of them explains Agile differently and they can't even agree to one another. It's really hard for me as the CEO of the company to know which one is teaching the real Agile. But here's what we did. At the end, we settled with one Agile consultant who never had any experience in any Agile transformation, but this consultant had 25 Agile training certifications. And what blows my mind is when he said that with Agile, I can get twice the work in half the time. I don't need to know the theories, and that's why we went all out with Agile last year. So thank you for inviting me to this interview. Agile is about employee wellness. We now have made a company policy where every employee needs to go to a meditation session that we have provided for them at least once a week. We also have changed several labels so that we stay relevant in the market. So we have changed the name of our departments into tribes. We call divisions as chapters, and we now call teams as squads. We also have changed key performance indicator as objective key result now. Everything else is still the same. We didn't really change the company culture. That is a bit too much. But at least we have changed the labels. Isn't that what Agile is about? Changing the labels without changing the behaviors? Thank you for inviting me to this interview. I actually don't like Agile because I think Agile is a short-term thinking development. Based on my personal research, Agile was conceptualized by a bunch of software engineers who just want to wing it without having a long-term vision and business strategy. How can you ever manage a company like that? It doesn't make any sense. We need vision and we need strategies. And Agile doesn't have any of that. Agile is messy. Agile consultants also like messing up with English semantics and bringing lots of oxymorons. Product owner in Agile does not even have ownership over the product. All they do just manage Jira. And on top of that, the Scrum Master. They're not even a master in Scrum. They're just really good in quoting the Scrum Guide. And don't get me started. Release train? Train is the worst metaphor for describing Agile. Train is the most un-Agile thing. I don't understand what's the hype about Agile. I've been doing what you folks call Agile for 30 years since I started in project management. I think this Agile thing is just common sense. You create long-term one-year plan using project charter, and then you create work breakdown structure, and then you break it down into shorter iteration. Those shorter iteration is what you people call as sprints. But in project management, we just call that shorter waterfall. Agile is an iterative shorter waterfall. And then you just keep on sprinting until the end of the project timeline. In Agile, there is this meeting that is called the daily stand-up. In project management, we just call that as the daily status meeting. During daily stand-up, we ask for status updates to the developers. Agile is a tighter control for project management. You can have more micromanagement to the team. Thanks for inviting me to this interview. I'm just an intern here. So from what I see, Agile is when you have a lot of meetings, more meetings than before you transform into Agile. So you got these daily meetings where everybody stand up and everybody need to report the status of the progress to the project managers. Afterwards, if you have issues, you can have the after daily stand-up meetings, the product backlog grooming meetings that can go for ages and ages because the engineers, the UX, the testers cannot agree with one another. Mid-sprint review meeting because the sprint review meeting is not enough because during the sprint review meeting you will be blamed by the senior management. The pre-sprint planning meetings, PI planning meetings, objective key result planning meeting, release train meetings. All sorts of meetings are there. You actually do more meetings than work and you can't get anything done because you spend the majority of your time doing meetings rather than work. So if you think that you don't have enough meeting, just do Agile. I'm actually new to this company. I just graduated from university. And when I saw this job ad that say product owner, I immediately apply. I can have an ownership to a product, but I was a bit disappointed. In Agile, the product owner does not really have ownership over the product. As a product owner, I have to report to the product manager. Even in real life, an owner is above the manager.
Bruh.
Just like a restaurant owner is above the restaurant managers? Why does the product owner need to report to the product manager? It doesn't make sense. Just shut up, product owner. Just because you're the product owner, it doesn't mean you have ownership over the product. You just have to accept the irony in life. Why don't they just call me business analyst? Because that's what I do. I just manage Jira, detail requirements, write down all of the acceptance criteria for the developers. Why do they call me product owner when I don't really have ownership over the product and my decision is overridden by the product manager and the CEO of the company? What's the point of changing the labels when the company culture is still the same? So I think Agile is a nightmare for testers because we only have 2 days to test before the end of the sprint, before the whole team will have a sprint review. It's a nightmare. How can you test like that? And we testers are always at disadvantage. Relax. Take a deep breath. Thank you for inviting me to this interview. Agile is just about adding the term sprints into every waterfall phase. At the user experience department, we have this design sprint, and all of the designers would create the specification, the wireframe, we would do user research. So once we're done, we would hand over those specs and wireframes and the research result to the developers. Wait! You have your own design sprint? That's not fair! Because we testers have to work in the same sprint with the engineers. Why can't we have our own testing sprint? Well, you get to do nothing in the first 8 days of the sprint, testers. Stop whinging! At least you can play TikTok and watch YouTube in the first 8 days of the sprint. Oh yeah, you're right. We get to do nothing in the first 8 days of the sprint. Agile is both heaven and hell at the same time for testing. I honestly can't see the difference between Agile and Waterfall. Agile is just staggered waterfall.
Bruh.
So Agile is basically when the UX people and the product manager say that the crappiest version is the minimum viable product. MVP, MVP, MVP. I don't even understand what MVP really means. So Agile is also when our project management office said that mini waterfall is sprints. They have this preconceived idea that with Agile, they can micromanage the team even more. While at the same time, our engineers are burnt out because of that mini waterfall. Speed over quality. And everyone in this company have their own approach to get to speed while lowering quality. MVP, mini waterfall. Twice the work in half the time. That's what Agile is. Speed over quality.
So thank you for inviting me to this interview. You may have heard that some people in this company don't really like Agile, but I actually have a different point of view about Agile. I really love it. When you don't really know where you want to go and you want to keep on changing your mind, just say that we're Agile.
Bruh.
You will be the coolest person in the room if you say we need to be Agile. So I think Agile is like a hype. If you're not Agile, you're not cool. Do you remember in the 70s when everybody wants to have this mullet haircut? So Agile is just like that. If you're not doing Agile, you can't brag on social media. That's Agile.